everyone, welcome back to another tool tutorial. Today we are not talking about power saws, we are talking about a manual miter saw or a miter box. So maybe you have just started out woodworking and you're not sure if you want to buy all the power tools just yet, or you live in an apartment and you cannot use the big miter saws or power saws, or you are just a little bit intimidated with the power tools. This is the answer for you. In fact, I first bought this miter box when I started out woodworking and I wanted to build a frame for a canvas. This is how I did it. And now I have a newer model, and even if you are confident using power tools and you have all the saws in the world, you still want one of these in your toolbox, and I will talk about that in a bit. But right now, let's get to know this miter box and learn all about it. So first off, what is a miter box? A miter box is essentially this box here that allows you to make manual cuts using a handsaw. And it actually allows you to make cuts that are pretty precise and accurate. They're pretty inexpensive. This one here was like $15. This one here is about $20-something. It has just a few extra features versus that one, but they're both incredibly helpful. They are a great starting point if you are starting out with woodworking, but even if you are a seasoned woodworker, they are great to have around the workshop because you can cut so much more than just wooden boards. You can use it to cut baseboards, molding, PVC pipes. I used it to cut rain gutters for my rain gutter bookshelves and the acrylic rods that I used in my copper and acrylic lamp. You can cut dowels. You can actually cut pieces of boards on here. If you have to cut really small pieces, that might not be safe to do so on a miter saw. So let's get to know this miter box a little bit better. So miter box is basically a plastic box which has slots cut in at some common angles. This one here is the most basic box. It has a 0-degree cut, it has a 45-degree cut in both directions, and then it has a slot right here on the side which makes the 45-degree bevel cut. This here is the next level up, and here you can see that apart from the 0 and 45-degree cut, it also has a slot for 22.5-degree cuts. And it comes with cam pins and some holes right here to use those cam pins, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But all of the miter boxes come with a handsaw as well. There's also the next level up, which has variable angles, so you can vary the angles and use a handsaw to cut with that. It's almost like a miter saw, but without the power motor and the power blade. So let's talk about how to use the miter box by making a few cuts. First, we're going to start by marking the measurement on the board. I usually use a tape measure and then use a speed square to make sure that I create a perfectly perpendicular line on the board where the cut is going to be made. I like to always mark the side that I want to keep. Now, before you start making any cuts, you want to make sure that your miter box is as stable as possible. This one here has a lip which rests against the edge of the table and keeps it stable. Whereas this one here has these hidden tabs that pop out and rest against the edge of the table. It also has these edges right here which you can use to clamp it down. And it also has these holes right here, both of these do, that you can use to screw into your workbench or workspace if that is a possibility. No matter what, you want to make sure that your miter box is as stable as possible while you're making the cut because you don't want it to move around. It is possible to use it without clamping it down, and I use it a lot of times as well, but it really does make life a lot easier if you're able to clamp it down. So I'm going to go ahead and clamp this while I make the cut. You can use any kind of clamp, a C-clamp, a bar clamp, any kind of clamp that will hold this miter box stable as you are making the cut. Now next I'm going to be clamping my board into the miter box. So I'm going to go ahead and align the line with the slot. Now I want to clamp this into the miter box. So there are a few options. If you have the older model, you can just use a clamp and clamp it in like this to the miter box, or with this we get what are called cam pins. Now these cam pins are specifically shaped this way, so they're able to clamp down your materials. So when you put it in one of these holes and turn it around, you are able to hold the material down. So I'm gonna put it in this hole right here, and this is still loose, but if I turn it, it holds it in place. I'm gonna put the other one here as well. And now I have the board nicely in there, nice and tight. So now we can go ahead and make the cut. Now before we make the cut, let's talk real quick about kerf. Kerf is a very important concept that you need to understand if you want to get accurate cuts. And I talk about kerf in a lot more detail in my miter saw video. But a kerf is basically the part of the board that turns into sawdust when you make the cut. It's usually the thickness of the blade. So as you are making the cut, you want to make sure that your entire blade is on the other side of the piece that you want to keep. If not, you're going to lose out some of the board, which will turn into sawdust. Now I'm going to go ahead and place the miter saw into the slot. Now you want to make sure that the entire board that you want to cut lies on this side of the saw blade. Now you see that the line isn't lining up with the saw blade, so I'm going to loosen the cam pins. I'm going to move my board so the saw blade, not just that it sits on that line, you want to sit at the edge of the line so that when you cut, you do not lose out any part on this side of the line. And now that I'm satisfied with it, I'm going to go ahead and tighten. Now I'm going to use my saw and make a few pulls to kind of make a little groove in the board. I think 4 or 5 times is enough to make a nice little groove for the saw blade to sit in. And then just go ahead and make the cut. The groove essentially makes sure that the saw blade stays exactly where you intended for the cut to be, and the saw blade doesn't walk around as you are starting your cut. It does take a little bit of elbow grease, but here's the cut. Now for the 45-degree cut, we do the exact same thing. You measure, mark, make your groove, and make the cut. For the bevel cut, I am going to be using the slots on the side and just go ahead and make the bevel cut. Another way to make bevel cuts is that instead of having your board laying flat like this, you stand it up and you hold it into your miter box and make a cut, and that would give you a bevel cut as well. Now you may be wondering why the saw does not damage the plastic in the miter box. There are a couple of design features that are built in to make sure that that does not happen. The first feature is the grooves on the base of the miter box, which essentially accommodate the teeth of the saw after you're finished with the cut. And second is that the saw itself has this lip which hits the miter box and keeps it from going too deep and damaging your plastic box. And in case you lose this or it gets damaged and you have to use a regular hand saw, you could place a piece of scrap wood underneath your workpiece, so when you finish the cut, the saw is only going to go into the piece of scrap wood instead of damaging your miter box. Cutting, crown molding, and baseboards is probably the most common application of miter boxes. Even with all the power saws available, I like to have a miter box next to me handy so I can make any quick cuts and adjustments if I need to, instead of having to carry the long pieces of baseboards across the house. And usually baseboards and crown molding are made with really soft materials that are very easy to cut with a miter box. And there you have it, a super simple and easy way to cut boards and get started. There are so many simple projects that you can take on with just a simple miter box. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments and let me know which tool tutorial you would like to see next. And if you are just starting out, I have a whole playlist of beginner woodworking tool tutorials that you may want to check out. And I have a lot of easy, beginner-friendly woodworking projects as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.